really, what county do you teach in?
Well, in all of Florida, Florida history is a 5th grade.
It's the 5th grade.
No, wait, 4th grade is Florida history. 5th grade is U.S. history.
All right, well.
U.S. history is 5th grade.
I see. So, but you know about some of this.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know that there were laws that said that slaves could not be taught to read or write, or do you know the word cipher? Read, write, or cipher. And cipher is adding and subtracting and multiplying and all that kind of stuff is cipher. And so you broke the law of the southern states if you taught your slaves to read or write. But many owners used the slaves for everything. So they needed the slaves to be able to read some things when they were weighing the cotton bales and that kind of thing. So some slaves were taught some things, and it was against the law, but it happened. So after the war, when Lincoln had published the Emancipation Proclamation, you know what that means? Yeah, okay. Many people who had been slaves wanted an education. They wanted to go to school. Can you imagine wanting to go to school nowadays?
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Of course.
Okay, so they wanted to go to school. And we'll think of a particular woman that I know of who was born a slave, and when she was 12 years old was when the end of the Civil War, 1865. And so she left the plantation where she had been born and brought up, even though she was 12. How old are you?
I'm 9,
10. You're 10. Well, she was 12. She walked from the plantation where she was born into Nashville, Tennessee, where some of the northern soldiers and generals had decided that they would have a school for freed slaves. And the name of the general was General Clinton B. Fiske. And General Clinton B. Fiske organized this school. And can you imagine when the students came, some of them knew a little bit about how to read, some of them knew a little bit about how to cipher. They were at all different levels of schooling. Some of them didn't even know the alphabet. And so the school started covering the entire, not just high school, but the entire thing, because some of the people who came had been taught, for instance, to play the piano and knew music and that kind of thing. So Fiske University started as a place to educate freed slaves who were called Negroes at that time. You know the word Negro, you know the word African American, you know all that stuff. All right, this was Fiske University. Fiske University went on for 50 years, and then they were having, no, I won't go into that part of the story. And after the elections in 1920, when some African Americans had fought for the United States in the First World War, they came back and they wanted to vote. They had fought for this country, they wanted to vote. And so there were terrible riots because some of the people who had been descended from the Southerners and had owned slaves and had sharecroppers on their land and didn't like people of different color, they were very, very angry with these black men trying to vote. And so there were lots of riots and this kind of thing. And after a while, in about 1924, there was a terrible riot on the campus of Fiske University. And it had been caused, some say, by the president demonstrating what the students thought was prejudice against Negroes. And here he was, president of Fiske University. Late at night, he and his family packed up all their belongings and crept out of the president's house and went down a block to the place where you caught a streetcar and went to the station and went back up north where they had originally come from. And left Fiske University with no president and with terrible debts. He had borrowed money from every bank, and there was no pay for the teachers. It was a very bad situation. And one of the people who was on what's called the board of Fiske University, the board is the people who tell the president what to do and run the whole university, was a Quaker. He was a wealthy New York Quaker, and he was a lawyer in New York City. And they had been hunting and hunting for a president, and nobody would go to be president. First, it was a university for black people. They didn't want to be president there, and besides, they'd had this terrible riot. We're certainly not going to go there. And they hunted, and they hunted, and nobody would be president. In 1926, two Quakers who were missionaries to Japan had come back because the father in this family, it was a man and his wife and two sons, he had been teaching at a university in Tokyo as part of his, Quakers don't necessarily just go and do mission work, which is preaching and getting groups together and trying to make them become more belief. Quakers don't do like that. Quakers get a job and then also try to live a good life to make the people where they're living think that maybe they would like to become closer to what the Quakers were. And that's what these people were doing. One was teaching in a school in Tokyo called Friends Girls School, a Quaker school, and the man was teaching at Keio University, but he needed a PhD. You know what a PhD is? So that he would be Dr. Thomas E. Jones. And so he had come back to this country to finish his PhD at Columbia University in New York City. And this man who was on the board of Fiske University knew this man from when this man had been Young Friends Secretary and had visited all the Quaker young people. And this man had been a young person before he became a lawyer and became on the board of Fiske University. And so he knew this Tom Jones, who was at Columbia getting his PhD. So he went to him and he said, "You're a missionary. You want to help people. And we need you to come and help us with Fiske University, because if we don't get somebody to take a hold of this thing, it's going to collapse because it's in debt up to here. It's a real problem. So, Tom Jones came home to his wife, Esther Jones, and told about this proposition that he should be president of Fiske University and not a missionary to Japan anymore. And so, she told me, when she told me the story, I knew he would take it. Anyway, so this family of Tom and Esther Jones and their two boys, David and
Canby.
moved to Nashville, Tennessee. And Tom Jones, when he got there, how am I doing? I got 5 more minutes.
Oh,
You'll be
keep
fine.
going. So
Yeah.
you should tell us who Canby is.
No.
Not yet.
Yeah.
I should tell you, I'm going to tell you who Catherine is.
Okay.
Because Esther knew that she was going to a new place. She knew what they had told about, that nobody had lived in the president's house for 2 years, and that nobody knew about how to run a college. Her husband didn't know how to run a college, but she did, because she had been to Wellesley when Wellesley had gotten a new president, and she had gone to Wellesley on a scholarship, and what she was assigned to do was to be the new president's assistant. So she knew all about how a new president behaved, how they had a big inaugural celebration for the new president and all this, because she had to organize it for the president of Wellesley.
As a student.
As a student. Wow. And so she knew all about it. But she knew she wouldn't be able. In those days, in 1926, if you're pregnant, you don't do anything except sit around and drink tea and talk to your friends and go to church, and you don't do any work of any kind. You don't set things up. You don't organize. You don't do anything like that. And she knew that. And she knew she was going to a new community where nobody knew her. So she wrapped a big towel around her body so that instead of being a pregnant woman, she was a fat woman. And nobody knew that she was pregnant. They just knew she was fat. And she put more towels around her as the baby got bigger and bigger here. And she organized all these things. She got this man who had gotten her to come to get the president of Yale University to come to the inauguration of Thomas E. Jones as president. And so all the other colleges were astonished at this black place where black students went, got the president of Yale University to come, and all kinds of things like that. She organized the faculty together so that when she got there, the faculty were in factions about this riot business that had happened, but she got them all to get together and to work together to begin to build up Fiske University. And in January 29, 1927, she gave birth to a baby named Catherine Balderston Jones. So I was born on the campus of Fiske University, but I was not born in a hospital because they couldn't afford it. There was no money. There was bankrupt. They were close to bankruptcy. So I grew up in what was called an interracial community, but it was actually in the black section of Nashville, which Nashville, Tennessee is where Fiske was. General Clinton B. Fiske, right after the war, had gotten the federal government to give to Fiske University, what it named after him eventually, give to this university where black people were being educated the second highest hill in Nashville, Tennessee. Nashville had lots of hills, and the capital of the state of Tennessee is on the highest hill.
Mm.
And Fiske University is on the second highest hill.
Wow.
And so Thomas E. Jones started building up Fiske University, getting them out of debt, getting things to happen, and found out.
Keep going.
Yeah, you're fine.
Found,
Gary can sit in when he comes. He
can we go on?
Yes.
Sure.
We can go on.
Please, go on. Till the battery
But-
runs out.
Yeah.
You see, Nashville was in what was called the segregated South. Have you heard of segregation?
Mhm.
You know about that. Because we still have it. I wonder if anybody in your school treated me like I was treated when I went to school. As if somehow, because I had black friends, it would have rubbed off on me. They wouldn't touch me because I lived with black people. And my best friends were two wonderful girls, both of them African American. Wonderful people that I have loved all my life. And they both died.
Mm.
I'm still living. I'm old. And so, but some of the people in my school would have nothing to do with me. And so that I grew up being, do you know the word shunned? Being shunned because I lived in an interracial community. Some of the teachers at Fiske were white, and some of the teachers at Fiske were black. And my father was the last white president of Fiske, which was one of his goals. Another goal was to make Fiske the Harvard of black universities. That is, the one that everybody thought was the finest.
Right.
And so he took him 20 years to do this. And so he had been there 20 years building up Fiske University. And I was born on the campus because my parents could not have afforded to put me in a hospital, or to have me in a hospital, had me at home. So I was born in the president's home in Fiske University. And I'll show you. I wish you and your mother and your brother and your father would come and visit me 35 miles away. You've driven that one time after you, anyway, that's a whole side point.
Right.
So I grew up in a Jim Crowe, they called it Jim Crowe. Do you know why they called it Jim Crowe? There was entertainments, like you now watch these singers that have all these groupies that come and so forth. And in those days, there were entertainments in theaters, and there was one kind of entertainment in which white people covered their faces with charcoal and with black and put them around their eyes and pretended to be black people. And they behaved what I would have said was horrendously, but
Right.
the people who came to watch the shows thought they were hilarious. And the name of one of the stars of this pretending to be black people comedy was Jim Crowe. And that's why we call, when you're really hating black people, but you're laughing at them and you're making fun of them and you are treating them as second-class or 10th-class citizen, that's why the word Jim Crowe means being nasty to people of different cultures. And Jim Crowe was very, very important to Southern people and to other people. There were Jim Crow people all over the United States, people who behaved like, white people who behaved like this. Oh, I'm white, so I'm better than you. How could that be? My mother used to point out, I have all these little black spots called freckles on me, so I'm part white. And so, are you here for the animal?
No, I don't think, are you here for yoga or? No.
We're not here for yoga or animals.
Okay, we're in the middle of a story. Would you want to sit down and join us?
Yeah, you can come join us if
Then
you'd like.
we'll come back and not interrupt you.
Okay.
No, it's no problem.
But you're
Because
welcome to
it's
sit in.
one of my stories. And Walter Drew, where are you from, Walter? I don't know you.
I'm from Melbourne, Florida.